Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And we want to welcome you to Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. This is part 2 of our conversation about misogyny. This is a topic that is very hot for me right now, and probably for many of you. There is a rise in misogyny, and it is, for me personally, disheartening, not only because I live with one of the kindest and most respectful men on the planet, and so I am a woman who feels cherished and adored and protected every minute of every day, but also because in my work, in my coaching, my program, Emotionally Naked Dating, I have spent over 22 years bridging the gap between women and men and helping women who have had so many heartaches and disappointments from the men in their lives recover and get emotionally naked so that they can connect with good men like Benjamin and have beautiful, loving, guardian of their soul relationships. So to see all of that being threatened right now, and to see us going back in so many ways, I'm feeling what many of my clients are probably feeling, and what many women in the world are feeling right now with the rise of white supremacy and misogyny, and watching all these hard-won rights that our mothers and our grandmothers fought for being taken away. This is our second part of this conversation. If you haven't seen part 1, please do. It aired last week. Babe, I'm going to ask you some questions.
Great.
And I may ask you some questions about those questions so that I can really dig into your beautiful brain and try to help women understand what's going on out there, and also hopefully give them some peace of mind that men like you do still exist, and that there are many men out there who are afraid for us. I know you are. Can you speak to that?
I'm concerned that we've made so many advances, and coming from such a deficit, women didn't get the vote until the 1920s. And so there's been a constant struggle, but we've seen progression. And now we're at a tipping point where we may seem some of those inalienable rights, some of the things that we've taken for granted, some of the hard-fought victories beginning to disappear.
They already are.
Yeah.
Look at our abortion rights.
Yeah.
If a woman doesn't have control over her own body, she has nothing. Nothing. And this is a devastation. What do you think about abortion rights being taken away from us?
I think that I'm pro-choice, so women should have the choice of what to do with the rest of their lives. And if they're forced to follow through with a pregnancy, if it's due to rape or incest or an unhealthy fetus, or just that they're unable to care for the child, it would devastate not only the woman for the rest of her life and perhaps her family, but also the child coming into the world.
Yeah. So as someone who respects and loves women, what troubles you most about the current wave of misogyny?
I think first it's the persistence that it's so ingrained from the way that kids are brought up to be tough, to be dominant.
Men.
To be dominant men. And so it's something that should have long been dissipated, that the equality, and we talk about equality for decades, we've fought for it, and the equality just hasn't happened. It really hasn't happened. And I think men feel that in this day and age that they're losing control. not just over women, but losing control in life. And so they're grabbing what control they can, and a lot of that control is domination of women.
And again, I know we talked about this last time, but why are men so afraid of women?
My sense is that women have an innate power. There is truly a feminine power. And from pre-biblical times to the present day, that men have been afraid of that power. And they've had rituals that have separated women from the center of society, that have kept them out of the boardrooms, that have kept them out of politics, because they're afraid of the power that they have. So men will grab what power they can in these venues, in politics, in the boardroom, even in the nuclear family. And it's a sense of creating control for themselves.
And I'm going to bring it back to sex. I'll bring it to sex. Men have to ideally not just take sex from women, but in the best of all worlds, men have to have a woman's agreement. She is the one who can say yes or no to a man, and a man can keep a woman barefoot and pregnant to keep her dependent on him. But what he cannot do is make her love him or like him or even want to have sex with him. And he can hold on to her by subjugating her, which is what men have done over the centuries. But the thing that he cannot do is force a woman to love him. And I think that many powerful men do not like the fact that they have to come to us and have our permission in order to have sex with us, that they can't just take what they want. Can you speak to that?
I think that men's insecurity about being attracted to a woman and having a woman attracted to him is a constant battle in many men.
And the rejection.
Yeah, and the rejection. So I think that they turn that rejection into hatred. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, is that the more negative feelings men have towards women, the more that vibe gets communicated, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and their hatred and anger becomes more and more.
And the rejection, I'm guessing, when a woman rejects a man, especially a man who's powerful and successful and has money and status, when a beautiful woman rejects that man, what does that do to his ego?
A lot of the reasons that he has the position he has, that he buys the shirts he buys, that he drives the cars that he is to impress women. Really, that so much of what a man does in his daily life is to eventually impress a woman.
And the best women, the prettiest women, the highest status women, so that he can have the most attractive children.
Yeah. And have his masculinity mirrored back to him, I think is even more important to him. To do all of that and be rejected is crushing for many men.
And so it creates a lot of anger, and you get the Jeffrey Epsteins of this world, and you have people like, who was the actor, the one that just got let out of jail, that was drugging women, and I can't think of it, Bill Cosby. You have these men who, when, they can put out a public facade, but privately, when women are with them, they see who they are, and they're not impressed. They don't want to sleep with them. And so you get these horrible, aberrant, hideous kinds of men who manipulate, control, and abuse women. And I think that's, in many ways, we can dance around the issue, but I think that at the heart of it It is the rejection, the sexual rejection of these men that drives them to make comments like, I can grab a woman by the, or a man who can rape women and brag about it and get away with it.
And all of this starts early on. It can start with, first it can start with having role models that aren't healthy in the media or even in the nuclear family. But with the onset of adolescence and all a young man thinks about is the opposite sex, and not to have that reciprocated, at an early age, you can start creating the basis of that anger.
Well,
misogyny.
you see these people. I can't remember Andrew Tate. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he is like the ultimate misogynist. He had, I think they took him off of Sirius Radio. He may be back on somewhere.
I think he's in jail.
Is he in jail?
I'm pretty sure.
He was a nightmare, and he was stoking the anger of so many men who have been rejected by women sexually or don't get attention from women and feel such hatred toward us because of that. And I think I'm going to flip the narrative for a second, if I could. I never felt beautiful. I never felt attractive growing up. I struggled with my weight. I was deeply insecure. I had no relationship with my father, who was a very handsome man when he was young and a player, a womanizer, cheated on my mom and every woman he was ever with. And I felt invisible to men. I felt invisible, and I settled for the first man who turned out to be a sociopath and a pathological liar, but I settled for him because I thought that was the best I could do. He was popular and magnetic, not attractive by any stretch of the imagination, but very charismatic. And that made me feel, because I could hide behind him, and I felt like an important woman because this charismatic man was my partner and eventually my husband. But instead of coming out of that marriage and hating men, I made the choice to look at myself and ask myself, what is so unattractive about me to men? Why aren't men attracted to me? What am I doing? How can I do this better? How can I improve myself? And this wasn't just a physical thing. I mean, part of it was working out and becoming more comfortable in my body and all. But another part of it, and probably the bigger part of it that gets overstepped, is that I had to really begin to learn about men, who they are, what they're looking for, how to tell a good man from a not so good man, and how to connect at a heart level with a man. And so that was the real work I think that all human beings need to do. Yeah. That's the piece that gets overlooked. I heard I'm sorry I'm talking a lot, but I heard a woman on NPR yesterday, and she wrote a book. I don't know if she's a journalist. She's not a therapist. I think she's a journalist who wrote a book about dating. And it was interesting hearing her talk and the questions they were asking her about dating. And she was a smart woman, she was an intelligent woman, and her answers sounded smart. Like they would say, she said, most women rush into relationships and you should date several men at once, and you should sit back and not take each date as a rejection. And so she was giving some basic, it sounded smart coming from her. But I sat back and it was like, you need to date multiple people and all of these sort of what is common today, things we teach our clients. But as I sat and listened to her talk, I asked myself, what's missing from this conversation that they're having? Because They were trying to make it sound interesting and relevant. What was missing was this piece about the inner work that we all have to do to learn how to have healthy rapport with the opposite sex. And misogyny is the opposite of that. It is unhealthy rapport. It is hatred. And in some ways, feminism was hatred towards men. And there was so much misogyny in my mother and grandmother's time that once women started working and women's lib happened and all, then you started to have feminists. And the feminists hated men. And now it's flipped again. As a man, I'm wondering how it feels to you in your heart to see what's happening right now and how many men worldwide, if you look at cultures around the world, and the Taliban is the worst example of all, but you have this all over the world that men are subjugating women.
Yeah. In answer to your question, it's disheartening. And it also puts me at a deficit. So men who really care about women and feel an equalness between in the two sexes, that I have to keep proving myself. You know, if I walk into a social situation or meeting or a session with my clients, that I have to prove myself first that I'm safe, that I can listen to them, I support them, and I'm not trying to really role play a more dominant role in even a casual relationship. Even with a cashier at a dry cleaning store, there could be dominance and misogyny, and to really see the other person. But I'm coming from a deficit because I think there's such a basic mistrust that has been developed in women that, like on our first date, I felt the first thing I had to do was prove I wasn't an axe murderer. And fortunately, you read a book I wrote, and we had a mutual friend.
A book called Handbook for the Heart, no less.
But on first dates, men often have to prove that they're safe
And
just get over that hurdle because there is this distrust. So I think it puts good men, at a disadvantage.
Can I ask you, if you were out with a guy, let's say you were out with a group of guys or whatever, and some of this kind of misogynistic conversation or behavior came up?
I would not be with that group again because it's embarrassing, it's hateful, and it's demeaning. Even being with a guy that refers to grown women as girls is just grating on my nerves. And just seeing players and men that intentionally lie to get what they want. I've seen it all. I've been in my practice for January will be 43 years. Wow. And I've seen a lot of different men, the vast majority good men. But I've seen really men that have made me embarrassed, and it's felt toxic to be with them.
What do you say when they start going down that road?
It's because my work is manual therapy. It's not, if I were out socially with them, I would say something. I would say, this is really embarrassing. And if you're going to act this way, if you're going to sound like that, I can't be with you. In a professional situation, which is really about how to get people well, it doesn't really enter that venue.
And you can also just say, we need to be quiet right now.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I usually say, if they start going, I'll say, I'm going to be quiet for the next few minutes. And so it quiets them.
Yeah.
Because it's horribly offensive. And some guys like to brag to other guys, to keep having their own masculinity mirrored back to them by themselves. Not by even others, but by themselves.
Yeah.
And it's toxic.
And immature.
Immature. Because real men can be kind. Real men can be gentle and show emotions and empathy. Real men don't have to prove that they're just tough and they're studs.
Yeah.
Real men are tough and real men are studs, but they don't have to brag about it and they don't have to act it out with other men.
And the truth is, men can tell. Men don't like men who brag. Isn't that a turnoff for men?
It's a turnoff for good men, but sometimes, as we see with Andrew Tate and the internet, media, social media, that sometimes it just stokes that one guy can stoke another guy with misbehavior.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, horrifying. So what changes do you think need to happen at a societal level to create a healthier relationship between men and women?
I think it starts early on, very early on. And I'm at an age where elementary school was just elementary school, but it didn't really talk about equality. Then you get into junior high school and you start beginning to notice young women, and then high school. And none of this is really discussed.
Yeah.
There may be a sex education course, but it's not the how men and women are equal and how they're different and how that differences actually augments both people. So I think it should start very early in the nuclear family, in education.
Yeah. So many people, women, have said that END, my course, Emotionally Naked Dating, should be taught in schools,
Yeah.
that it's a program that kids should learn from a very early age,
Yeah.
because it's based on really just basic spiritual principles of kindness and respect and gratitude and
Yeah.
compassion, which are universal. There's no gender differences in those. It's just two people coming together and respecting and loving and having compassion for one another.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we need to start this at a much earlier age, and especially when it comes to little boys, we need to send messages that it's okay to cry, it's okay to have feelings,
Yeah.
it's okay to be human.
Yeah, yeah. Because if they're taught to hold back on their emotions, they create a wall.
Yeah.
And that wall is impenetrable. And it prevents the feeling of equality because the wall creates a distinct persona that they have to maintain. And to do that, it often means that they need to feel dominant over another person.
And it's just a facade. They're hiding behind a facade. There's no real connection. You have people that go through relationships, and many of our parents, that's what their relationships were like. They were companionships, but there was no real emotional intimacy. Look at your parents.
Yeah,
None.
yeah,
I don't think I ever really saw, in all the time that I spent with your parents, I never saw them truly connect.
no,
Ever.
no.
I think they connected over their love for you. That was it. Yeah. So do you think it's possible to change the mindset of men who feel resentment towards women? And how would we do that?
I think it starts with personal growth. And there has to be, first, a man has to see that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then there has to be a willingness to solve the problem, and then a willingness to change the behavior and attitudes. So I think that's it. And so the first step is for a man to grow and to let go of any misogynistic tendencies, is to first to see that it's a problem. And that's the difficult thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard when somebody's trying so hard to present an image or of strength and manliness, all of the things that we think of as being masculine and a man. It's the opposite of admitting that you have a problem, because that means that there's weakness.
Yeah.
So that's very hard. What would you like to say to men who feel frustrated by women's increasing presence in traditionally male spaces?
I early on in my career, I attended a workshop, and it was for manual therapy. And it was 12 men and 2 teachers. It may have been more men than that, but there wasn't a single woman in there. And it felt suffocating. And what one woman adds to a group like that, it's like opening the window and letting air in. I actually even missed, it was a 6-day workshop. I actually missed one day. I just stayed home because I couldn't take it anymore. And when there were women models in the class, they were treated, it reminded me of a meat packing where they're hanging things of meat, where Rocky would practice punching in the way that they were touched, the way that they were treated. It just reminded me of a piece of beef hanging, and just that type of lack of consideration.
So what I hear you saying is that men need to step back and appreciate what women bring to these environments and these spaces.
Oh, absolutely. And it was suffocating for me because men have feelings. And with having women there helps to unlock some of those feelings, just to be able to communicate.
And alleviate some of the intensity. Men can be very intense.
Oh, there were guys bragging about their motorcycles and this, and it was just monochromatic. Women bring color into it. But it was just a miserable experience. And again, even just one woman in that group would have changed the dynamics.
And I want to just, for all the people who are listening, explain that manual therapy, you work on pain and injury using your hands.
Yes.
So almost a physical therapist, or how would you describe that, honey?
As you described it, and it's helping to really relieve dysfunction, pain, postural issues.
Through manual therapy and manipulation.
Treating accident victims. So people come in wounded, and most of my practice and most therapists' practice are women. So when a woman comes in, I have to be especially careful, to be respectful, to have them feel seen, to
create safety and
robes.
trust.
Exactly. I give them robes, blankets, layers, just so they feel safe. And there are therapists I know of that require someone to completely disrobe and just lay on the table. And that would be uncomfortable even for a man to do with another man. I so carefully go the other direction, trust and safety. And it's fine to work around robes and blankets and sheets and all of that, because the more trust and safety someone feels, the more they feel comfortable expanding the repertoire of what could be done in a session.
Yeah. So how can men who are allies like you to women help shift the conversation and challenge these negative attitudes?
I think that one of the worst things a man could feel is shame. And so if a good man just mirrors back to them what someone just said, do you really want to say that about this woman? Or I have to say it makes me uncomfortable. Or would you like to rephrase that in a way that's more respectful? That even the slightest bit of shame can recalibrate a man, his attitude and how he acts. What I would call kind shaming.
From one man to another.
From one man to the other, yeah. If two people are together and the misogynistic man is with a male that he respects, how that male feels about the misogynist is really important to the misogynist. So just a very careful guidance. Or if I would have said that about this woman, I probably would have said it like this. And so there's a little bit of shame that they did something wrong, and it begins a learning experience. Yeah.
You're so diplomatic. The way you say things is amazing. So, babe, what can women do to protect their self-worth and mental health when they're faced with all this hostility and anger from men?
I think that all mental health really begins with self-compassion, understanding that it can be difficult, but really to have a sense of one's own strength and intelligence and goodwill.
And also to be able to, I would think, to not take it personally and to realize that this comes from deep insecurity in men.
Yeah, and it's hard not to take it personally, but to be able to step back and see the big picture is really important.
It is hard not to take it personally, and I also think that more than taking it personally is that it's just so sad. If you're beyond if you think, wow, that really is such an insecure man, what has happened in this man's past that's driving this behavior? It just brings up sadness for me personally.
I think with misogyny or any other really bad personality characteristic, that if you go one layer deeper and another layer deeper and another layer deeper, it's like an innocent child just asking to be loved. And so all these layers are built on this, and it leads to misogyny, because what's underneath it is someone that just wants to be loved. Just someone, this little child that just wants to be loved. And when it doesn't happen, or they can't feel it, then they begin to layer it with this bad behavior.
Yeah. What qualities in women do you most admire, and how do you think those qualities benefit everyone, including men?
I admire their emotional availability. I admire their strength. I admire the power that women have that's unique to women.
Can you talk more about that? What is that power?
Some of it doesn't have vocabulary. It's just how they are on the planet. But for a woman to be able to give birth, to nurture, to be really in charge of the family, and often have a full career, to be able to really manage so many things around them, it's extraordinary. But beyond that, there is a power that is both attractive to men and frightening to men. Both things are going on. And the part that's frightening, or when men feel frightening, that's when they need to control.
Yeah. What gives you hope about the future of men and women working together for equality and respect?
I think there are young men coming up with more sensitivity. I think that compared to a generation or two or three and beyond that ago, that where a man thought that being a man was being misogynistic. That was like the Playboy Club type attitude. And those things are disappearing. And so I'm hoping there are parts in the world that are going in the wrong direction. There's parts of our world that is going in the wrong direction. But at the same time, there are things that are very positive that are coming into fruition.
Yeah. And I think about the Me Too movement. That wasn't very long ago when all of that came to light. And it's still, you still have men like P. Diddy, and it's horrifying. You don't see women doing these things. It's men exploiting women over and over again. And it just seems like there's one after another.
And I think that a positive thing is like in colleges and universities where they really require mutual consent even for a kiss. That before it would be like looking at romantic comedies from the 40s and 50s where a guy would just, a Rhett Butler today probably would be slapped.
Or on the Me Too movement list.
Exactly. So things are changing for the positive, but it's a mixed bag.
If there was a message you could share with men and women about respecting each other and creating a better world, what would it be?
It's that respect and kindness, doesn't weaken men. It makes us stronger. And we want to create a world where everyone's contributions matter. And that by honoring each other and honoring the uniqueness that each gender brings in, that it lifts both people up, and it lifts society up, and hopefully it will lift the world up. And that's what we're hoping for.
So, turning to the most important subject for me, dating, I think it's important just to take a quick look at how misogyny creates fear in dating and what impact it has on women.
I think that many women can feel going into a date, particularly even if it's someone that they know from church or from book clubs or whatever it is, they don't know if he's safe. So they can feel unsafe, they can feel judged. Is my hair right? Is my makeup right? Is my chin too big? Whatever it might be.
Or is he a woman hater?
Exactly.
Does he hate underneath this facade of him trying to be charming or whatever? Yeah. Am I going to find out that this man hates women?
Yeah, and often the most charming men are the ones that are the most misogynistic. Yeah.
And one of the big things, it still happens, it's less than it was in the Playboy era, but there's still a lot of objectification of women, dismissiveness, and hostility. And women are not necessarily protected. Laws don't protect women. One of the big things that came to light not long ago was how many rape kits hadn't been processed.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
Oh, and I grew up with those statistics that talk about insult to injury. Terrible.
If women got raped and they wanted to stand up for themselves, they were often accused, what were you wearing and what did you do and how did you bring this on yourself? And they were blaming the victim, not the perpetrator. The other thing too is that women constantly feel like they have to guard themselves against these attitudes, and it makes them wary of fully opening their hearts, showing vulnerability, or trusting men.
Yeah. And for a good man, if he shows up on a date and a woman is so guarded, she's not in her femininity.
She can't be.
Yeah, she's not in her feminine, no. And so he doesn't feel it, and there's often not a second date because of that.
And so many women are so afraid to be feminine because a man might feel that she's leading him on. And it's why we encourage our clients to not invite men back to their homes and to take this very slowly and not to rush into anything, to do this in subtle ways, in very feminine ways, sensual ways, but to do this very slowly and very judiciously to see how the man responds. And also to have boundaries, to express her boundaries so that she can see, is this a man who respects women, who respects a woman's boundaries, who's safe? So it's just, as we're talking about this, my heart feels heavy because it's hard enough, it's been hard enough to date as it is, and all we've done is encourage our women to open up, express their sensuality and their femininity, and it seems like in some ways that's going to be harder and harder for them to do.
Yes.
How does misogyny create a divide between women and men in dating?
I think we just discussed that women can be guarded on a date, not really show who they are, not offer a bit of vulnerability, see how it's received and responded to, so the man could share his vulnerability. The date could become very two-dimensional instead of an enriching experience. And when two people are able to share their vulnerability, even if both people know that there's not going to be a second date, they both leave that date feeling good because it was a very enriching experience. And that doesn't happen if one person has to feel guarded.
And it's going on both sides. You've brought this up, and I've heard this from other women expressing, repeating things that men have said to them. With the Me Too movement, men are also guarded. They're terrified of making sexual advances and because they're afraid of what might happen.
Even touching a hand or holding hands.
Yeah, so I think it's both, and then that's exhausting. How do you ever create a real emotional connection, a heart connection, when both people are guarded? What's needed for men and women to overcome these barriers so that they can connect and have guardian of your soul relationships?
I think mutual respect, empathy, the sense of first one has to realize the importance of equality. And to realize the importance of it, one has to have empathy to really see what it's like to be a woman and what it's like to be a woman who has to face misogyny every day in her life.
Especially beautiful women.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine the attention that they draw to themselves and what goes on. I'm very fortunate that I've never been raped. I've never been sexually abused. Many women have. The statistics are off the charts for how many women have suffered sexual abuse, physical abuse. So I'm very lucky, and I'm also fortunate that I dated in a day and age where men and women did have a certain amount of equality and respect for each other. And it wasn't okay to be a misogynist, that those things had been a little bit ironed out during the time when you and I met. It wasn't so inflammatory, so inflamed.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to women today and men who are dating, good men, because they fall. There's a shadow that is cast on all men when men behave, when this voice gets louder and it becomes more and more okay to be this way with women. It casts a shadow on everybody. So that's why having a program like ours and support of coaches like you and me is so vitally important today, to have people who can model this kind of relationship for you is imperative, who can give you hope and show you how to spot these really good men and let go of the misogynists and get their number quick so that you can move on. So if you want to learn more, and I can't say enough about this course and how many of our clients, babe, are in incredible relationships with extraordinary men like Benjamin. If that's really what you're longing for and this is your dream, then please go to lisashield.com and click the button all over my website to watch my free presentation. I ask that you watch the presentation from beginning to end. It is so important that you understand who we are and what work we do with our women before you sign up for a call with my team. But at the end of that presentation, you can do that. We will hop on a call with you. We'll describe my course. And if you want to meet a guy like this, then book a call and let us show you how you can find the guardian of your soul. Babe, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Me too.
It was, I think, an important one, one that needed to be had.
It's the elephant in the room, in the corner.
Yeah, no,
It's there.
It's there, and I think it's getting
And it's
bigger.
big, and it's often unspoken.
Yeah, so thank you for weighing in and sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And this has been Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. We'll see you next week for another episode. Take care. Bye-bye.